How's it going, everybody, and welcome to the Fourth and Long podcast with your host, Alec Pecano. Again, I am running the show by myself because my co-host is still under the weather, but I've got all his notes for the show tonight, next to me over here. Tonight's show is bold predictions, hot seat meters, score predictions, and I have some other stuff that I'm going to cover on the show as well. But first, we are going to start with his bold predictions. His first bold prediction is Tennessee will beat Bama by double digits. And I would say this is a bold prediction, but I don't really think it's that much. It is a bold prediction to him, but to me, I don't really think it's a slight bold prediction because I think Alabama is going to lose by at least 10 points to Tennessee this week. His second bold prediction is that Army will score 55 points against East Carolina. And yes, East Carolina is, and I called it in the offseason. I said East Carolina was not going to be that good this year. And everybody wanted to say, "Oh, you didn't see what they did in the transfer portal." Yeah, I did see what they did in the portal, and it wasn't very much of anything. And his last bold prediction is Texas will by win by few points over Georgia. And I agree with this to an extent. I think Texas Georgia is going to be a close game on Saturday night, and we will all get to watch it together because we are doing a watch party Saturday night, 7:30. And I will explain at the end of this stream how the watch party is going to work Saturday night. But now we get to his score predictions. And his score predictions are, his first one is Tennessee 48, Alabama 34. And is that one of mine? No, it's not. He picked 3 games. I picked 3 games. I think this is close enough to what the final score is probably going to be for the Tennessee Alabama game. The next game he's got a score prediction for is Army and East Carolina. And he thinks Army's going to beat East Carolina 55-7, which I agree with. I don't think East Carolina is going to score that many points against Army. And then he's got Texas beating Georgia 42-40. And now his hot seat meter. He's got he's got the Baylor head coach Dave Aranda at an 8. And he didn't really leave notes here, but I'm going to guess it's because look at Baylor, look at their record. They're 2-4. He thinks that if Baylor keeps losing, that Dave Aranda, snap of a finger, could be out as head coach. I agree with him on his second head coach that's on the hot seat, and Mike Houston at East Carolina. I think Mike Houston could be fired before the end of the season, and I will explain a little bit later on. And then he's got a surprising head coach firing on here on his hot seat meter. And it's Mike Norvell at Florida State. He's got him at an 8. And to say that I'm shocked that Mike Norvell's not on here is surprised he is on here. And I'm stunned. Now we get over to my bold predictions. I think I'm right along the same lines as him. I think Tennessee's going to rout Alabama on Saturday. I don't think it's going to be much of a game. I think it might be over by halftime. And Bama fans are not going to like that. I don't think that Bama is going to be able to stick around with Tennessee's high-powered offense. My second bold prediction, and I believe Arizona State plays tonight. They are starting Jeff Sims, the former North Nebraska quarterback and Georgia Tech quarterback, at QB tonight. And I think he goes off for 400 yards and 4 total touchdowns against Cincinnati. And my other bold prediction is that Brett Gabbert throws for 4 touchdowns and 400 yards versus Ohio on Saturday. Now we get to my score predictions. And my number one score prediction is Arizona 49, Cincinnati 24. Like you just heard me say in my bold predictions, I think Jeff Sims has a coming out party against Cincinnati, and he does not give that job back. He is the QB1 for Arizona State the rest of the season. My number 2 score prediction is Memphis 48, North Texas 38. I think Memphis is going to beat North Texas. Even though Bradley, my co-host, has it the other way around with Memphis losing to North Texas. I think Memphis is going to beat North Texas. And my last score prediction is Miami of Ohio 49 and Ohio University 40. I think this is another rivalry game for Miami. They lost to Toledo, but this is their big rivalry game in conference, and I think they beat Ohio. Now I'm going to give you my updated conference championship games. And we start with the Big Ten. I kept it as Oregon and Ohio State because I think that's going to end up being the conference championship game in the Big Ten. Unless something drastic happens, unless Ohio State loses to Penn State or Michigan, or Ohio State loses out somehow, which I don't think is going to happen. And same thing with Oregon. Oregon's got Purdue tomorrow night, and I don't see Oregon losing to Purdue. I just don't. In the Big 12, I have to take my loss. I had Utah and Arizona in the preseason. Now here's my updated Big 12 championship game. Iowa State and Colorado. Both of these teams have been sleeping giants. Deion's got Colorado playing the best it's played in the last 2 years. And I think they've got a really good shot at backdooring and sneaking their way in to the Big 12 championship game. My ACC championship game, it's an interesting one. I've got Clemson, and I've got them going to get. They have four teams they could go against. One being Clemson versus Miami, Florida, and that's the most realistic one. Then the last 3 are outside shot. Pitt, who's undefeated, SMU, or my preseason pick at Virginia Tech, which there is still an avenue for Va Tech to get in the ACC championship game. They need to win out, and they need help from a lot of teams. My AAC championship game. I had to change this one too because preseason I had USF. And USF they're dealing with some injuries. Now, it's not to say that they still can't make the championship game in their conference because I think they can. But realistically, here's the 3 teams I have. 2 for sure. 1 is a dark horse. I have Navy versus Army in the conference championship game. And I think that's the most realistic right now. The most realistic conference championship game. Because Army and Navy are both undefeated. And there's talk that they could play each other back-to-back weeks. 1 week being obviously the Army Navy game, and then the second week being the conference championship game. And both teams could still be undefeated at that point. And then you get the conference championship between Army and Navy. Or there's an outside shot. You could get North Texas in either Army, the combination of Army or Navy, in the conference championship game. Because North Texas, and I did not have them doing very well in the preseason. And I'll take the defeat there. I didn't think they were going to be this good, but there's a chance they could be that team that sneaks into the AAC championship game. Now we go to the SEC, and I'm keeping Texas in the SEC championship game, but I'm starting to think that Georgia won't make the championship game in the SEC. So I have a rematch of a game that's going to happen during rivalry week, and that is Texas A&M. I think Texas is going to play Texas A&M in the conference championship game in the SEC. My MAC championship game. I've still got Miami of Ohio getting in there somehow. I don't know how. And then the other team, and it's another team that I was extremely low on in the preseason in the MAC, in Buffalo. Buffalo's played really well, and I think that Buffalo could sneak into the MAC championship game. My CUSA championship game, Liberty is going to still be in it, but I've changed their opponent. It was going to be Western Kentucky, but I'm going Sam Houston. And Sam Houston is a team I was very, very low on, had zero expectation for in the preseason. But I think now that Sam Houston, I'm taking them a lot more serious now than I did in the preseason. They are no joke. And I think that they will be very competitive. And I think that would be a good conference championship game for Liberty because they're just going to go undefeated in the rest of their schedule. It's an easy schedule. Okay, that's it for that. Now we get to my what if. And my what if for this week is what if South Florida does one out? They would finish 9-4 and 5-4 in conference. Would that be enough to make the conference championship game? I'm going to say maybe. They would need Army or Navy to just collapse. And I don't know if that's going to happen. The worst Navy could do is 6-6. And same with Army. But then you got teams in front of them like North Texas, Florida Atlantic, and a bunch of other teams that are all gobbled up in front of them. Memphis, Charlotte, who's doing, I guess, decent. So I don't know if USF can make the conference championship game. If they went out, I'll give it an 80% chance, 75% chance that they can sneak into the conference championship game. And the next thing I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to go into I'm going to explain, and it is Billy Napier coaching replacements. I've got 3 and an honorable mention at number 3, and I've mentioned this name before, Rob Easel, the South Alabama offensive coordinator. Florida needs, I'm not saying Sunbelt Billy's a bad coach. He's good at recruiting, but I think they need to get a new mind in there. And if Rob Easel's ready to be a head coach, because we've seen his offense is high powered, and it is a pretty good offense. So Uh, that's number 3. Number 2, a guy that used to coach at Memphis, then he coached at, I believe, Florida State. No, he coached at Memphis and Virginia Tech. Justin Fuente. And I think Justin Fuente is ready to get back into the coaching ranks. And I think he would fit well with the Gators. Um, if he wants to be a head coach again, he might want to go get back into coaching and be a coordinator first, and then work his way back up to being a head coach. I could see that, or I could see the other way around where he just wants to be a head coach again because it ended poorly at Vautech. And number 1, and this is only if he gets fired at Iowa State, which, what's up? What's up, Mr. Cherry Cake? And that is Iowa State head coach right now, Matt Campbell. If Iowa State somehow chokes and loses their last 4 games, it doesn't make the conference championship, maybe Iowa State thinks about firing him and hiring somebody else, but I can't see that happening. And then my honorable mention goes to UTSA head coach Jeff Traylor. Where do you think game day goes? I yes, I could see game day going to South Dakota State in week 9, but I could also see it maybe going to Ohio State, Nebraska, because that's a big game in the Big Ten. And but honestly, I wouldn't hate if game day went to an FCS game in week 9 between South Dakota State. I wouldn't mind that at all. It's a change. It's a change of what they usually do. Now, knowing game day, they're going to go to a game that they think is going to be a good game, and it's going to end up being a blowout. Like this week, Texas, Georgia, I would have gone somewhere else for game day. Yeah, I could see game day going to Ohio State, Michigan. But the only issue is what if Michigan's got 3 or 4 losses and Ohio State still only got the 1 loss? Would they think about going to a different rivalry game then? Or would they still stick to Ohio State, Michigan? And tell me some other games in week 9 that are supposed to be that we would quote unquote consider good. Because I could see Ohio State, Nebraska. You know what? I got an idea here. I got an idea. I got an idea. Give me a second. I we are gonna pull up. Oh wait, let me see what he said. Notre Dame Navy, but why would game day? Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame's having a good season. I could see game day maybe doing Notre Dame Navy. But then again, you're right. Why would they go to the Giant Stadium and have game day be in the parking lot at the Giant Stadium? I'm about to pull up the schedule for week 9 and give y'all 3 places I think game day could be. Ooh. You know what? That's not. I know. I could see them going to Michigan State, Michigan. I really could. You know what? That's an underrated one. Texas versus Vanderbilt. No, I think that Texas Vandy game, I think is at Vanderbilt. And that's an that's underrated right there. Texas Vandy. What if Vandy beats Ball State this week, which they should, and they're ranked next week? That begs the question. What game day go to Nashville? Because that's where the Vanderbilt Texas game is. Would they go to Vandy, Texas, and go there instead of going to an FCS game? Here's 3 places I think game day might go. It's not going to be any of the Friday games. Number one, they could go to Vanderbilt and Texas, even though it would be the 3rd time they've done a Texas game this year. And it would be back-to-back weeks that they've done Texas, because this week they're doing Texas, Georgia. Another place I could see them going, unless Alabama loses by a lot, maybe Missouri, Alabama, and Tuscaloosa. Or look at Texas A&M, LSU. Or Manhattan, Bill Snyder Memorial Stadium, Kansas Kids State. Maybe they go there. 3 times. That's a very valid point. Is that Texas would be on game day 3 times, and they don't. Normally, they don't do that. Honestly, Bama wins. I see them going to Bama, Missouri, Alabama for Missouri, Bama. Yeah, I can see that. Why do you say no shot that they go to Kansas, Kansas State? That's a rivalry game though. Could you see them maybe Nebraska, Ohio State? Or no, I was gonna say maybe Wisconsin, Penn State. Oh, yeah, I completely forgot Kansas is 1-5. Yeah, you're right. There's absolutely zero. There's no shot that they go to Kansas, Kansas State. What about Wisconsin and Penn State? Yeah, it's a rivalry game, but you're right. K State's been whooping up on them. Could you see game day going to uh, Camp Randall for Penn State, Wisconsin next week? Or is that another no shot? Because Penn State could lose this week. Um, Penn State, Wisconsin is an option. I don't like the that Wisconsin has 2 losses. Yeah, I mean I see your your thinking there. It's an option, but does it happen? Is the question. Or do they go to a game that's a bigger priority? Let's keep going down the list. Wait, no. Ohio State versus Penn State is next week. Yeah, I think they go. Game day is going to go to Penn State, Ohio State in week 10. There is. I don't think there's any chance they go anywhere else in week 10. Unless somehow Penn State just completely gets. Unless Penn State gets boat raced by Wisconsin this week, then maybe they go somewhere else. But I think they're going to go Penn State, Ohio State. Because notoriously, that's what they always do. Is they always go to Penn State, Ohio State, no matter where it is. And we already know that it's probably going to be a night game. And it is going to be, I will be doing, for those of you in the stream right now, hello, Penn State is going to beat Wisconsin. I hope so. I really do as an Ohio State fan because I don't want Penn State coming in we play at Penn State. So I don't want Penn State coming in thinking they're going to beat us after getting beat by Wisconsin. So I see what you're saying that, yeah, Penn State's going to beat Wisconsin, or they should. But as we say every week, it's college football. Anything is possible. Did any of us have Vandy beating Alabama? I didn't. I didn't think it was going to happen. And I didn't have Tennessee losing to Arkansas. So it's college football. Anything can happen. And I'm going to tell you this. I didn't have Army or Navy being undefeated this late in the season. I didn't. But for those of you that are here, you're right. Yeah. Yeah. Most of the time I am. But sometimes I make predictions that are off. And I'm going to tell y'all right now, if I miss on win totals, my trip in 2026 will be to Ann Arbor, Michigan for a Michigan football game. And I'm going to have to buy Michigan gear and wear it as an Ohio State fan. But for those of you that are still here, we have a watch party on Saturday night for Georgia and Texas. And the way the watch party works is we will have the score for the Georgia Texas game up on the screen. But I will be giving my analysis as well. But it will also be a Q&A where you can ask me questions. And then at the end of the month, beginning of next month, we have two. We have one play-by-play, which is going to be Florida, South Florida, and Florida Atlantic. And then we have the watch party for Penn State, Ohio State on November 2nd at 7:30. I could do that for you. Scroll up. and you wanted to see South Dakota State and South Dakota. Right. Here's South Dakota State, South Dakota. Yeah, it's a 7 p.m. game next week for week 9. Like I said earlier, you may be onto something. They may go to South Dakota State. Because I'm 95% sure that's a rivalry game. Oh, so they're both 5-1, undefeated in conference play. I could definitely see them get game day at least giving it a look, but they may choose to go to a FBS game. And if they don't, that might be the FCS game they go to. So, Mr. Cherry Cake, you keep keep that um keep that thought in the back in your keep that thought locked away because game day might go to South Dakota State. Because they have been notorious for going to FCS games at some point during the college football season. And I can see them doing that next week because they don't think any of the games next week are going to be good. But anyway, that's going to wrap up tonight's episode of the Fourth and Long podcast. I will see y'all back here Saturday night at 7:30 p.m. for the Georgia-Texas watch party. Have a great rest of your Thursday night.